back rows. Slithering in this direction. The only way to get up, the only way to get away from it is to get up closer to the front. I could figure out microphone, which I wait for me. All righty then. I used to start all my classes with a joke. Good humor, good Christian humor, that's always a good way to get folks listening up. Seems there was an elderly couple. Y'all may have heard this before, I'm sure you have. Seems there's an elderly couple that was going to this church and invited the minister, the preacher, over to their house for lunch after church. And so he went over there, and they're eating a meal, and he noticed that the husband and the wife were just real affectionate towards one another. It was always honey this and baby that, and sugar this, and honey pie that, and all this other stuff. And so he's real impressed by that. And so got down to dessert, so the elderly lady, his wife, she got up and she went in the kitchen to fix dessert and get the coffee ready. And he leaned over to the old guy. He says, he said, I'm just so encouraged by y'all's relationship with one another. The guy says, what do you mean? He said, well, you're just so affectionate. It's honey this, baby that, sugar pie this, sweetie pie that. I just love it. It's just a really great thing. And the old guy leaned over. He went, well, I forgot her name 20 years ago, and I don't think she knows my name either. So, all right, that's my joke. I'm sure y'all have heard me tell that story before. Okay, well, I am prepared. Let's look at the announcements really quickly. I'm not going to read through all these things, so y'all can read through with me. We know who we need to pray for. Obviously, the Ellis family, and the loss of Keith's mom, and the Reynolds family, and the loss of Leon. Looking down here. Understand that Miss Ann's got a broken collarbone. So that's kind of bad because there's nothing you can do for it. So, and I saw this retirement thing on Facebook, and I didn't look at it close enough, and I told Bonnie in the car coming over, she said, I guess James Baker's retiring. She says, no, that's Glenda's retirement. And I went, oh, okay. Well, I congratulated him on his retirement, so anyway. Is there anything that y'all see that we need to add to this that's not here?
Children's Hospital ER this afternoon.
Okay.
So he's lost 5 pounds and just, I don't know, all been so tied up and everything, and he's been sick, so I haven't seen him, but I got a call this afternoon that Noah is being taken to the Children's Hospital ER in Birmingham.
So everybody heard that, right? Children's Hospital, Birmingham. That's not a good thing. It's a good place to go, though. It's a good hospital. Flew many a child into that hospital. Anybody else? At all? Anybody? Anybody? Hilton, could you lead us in the opening prayer? Or Keith, either one. Okay, Mary Kimmett. Okay. All right. Mary Kimmett passed away Monday. Friend of Lori's.
Father, as always, we're so thankful for the avenue of prayer that you've given us, means by which we can come to you with our concerns, with our needs, Father, and with our thanksgiving. Father, we are so thankful for many blessings that you've given us. We're thankful, Father, for this congregation and the opportunity it gives us to have a church family, to come together to study, to worship you. Father, we know there are those among our congregation who are suffering physically. We pray that you will be with them. We pray, Father, for Noah, as mentioned earlier tonight, Keith's nephew. We pray that those who will be taking care of him will do so in a way that will help him to recover his physical health. Know most of all, Father, that it's your leading hand that's needed to make certain that all of us have the physical well-being that you would want us to have. Father, we pray for Lord William and Mary, her family, at this time, as they suffer their loss. And we pray, Father, for keeping his family as well. They too are suffering the loss of their mother. Father, for all things, we're thankful. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to come together tonight. We're thankful, Father, most of all, for your Son, for his sacrifice, and we pray that you will forgive us of our sins. In Christ's name we pray.
Amen. I don't really like teaching a class, so I'm more of a lead the discussion kind of guy, because I'm really more interested in what y'all think and what you believe and what your understanding is, more than mine. So I'm hoping for a lot of participation here, and if you don't participate, I'm going to start calling names. So I'm going to force it out of you. I'm going to drag it out of you. I had back in the heyday of this congregation, I mean, back when we had, in the hundreds of people at Sunday school and stuff like that, I did a Wednesday night series. I did several Wednesday night series. One of them was on tough questions. And so, and we had some great discussion too. There's probably 40 people in that classroom on Wednesday nights. And we got down in the weeds about a lot of different things. I mean, we hit all the hot topics, instrumental music in the worship service, baptism, Lord's Supper every week, so on and so forth. Leadership roles, all of those hot topic type things. And then it spawned off into other discussions too, because the weekly assignment was that everybody had to go home and come up with a tough question that we hadn't covered yet. And so it was really cool. I mean, we had some really great discussion. And I know one person obeyed the gospel over those classes that we had, that series that we did. And the night that he obeyed the gospel, he's a major in the Army, and his wife had been a member of the church for a long, long time. And of course, I got up, at the end of the service, after he obeyed the gospel, I gave him a big hug and, said, "Congratulations, welcome to the family." He said, "This calls you." I said, really? He said, that series did it. He said, it's what we talked about in all those Wednesday nights. The thing went on for like 2 months or something like that. And so I don't like saying I think or I believe or it's my opinion. But you got to say this. I don't think you could cover this too much because it needs to be reviewed. So, tough questions. And so, why is it important for us to have an answer? That's the question. See, y'all got to answer me. Why is it important for us to have an answer? Doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything. That would certainly possibly that would do that. It depends on how accurate you are, right? And so, right. Yeah, that's certainly,
They were ready to give an answer to anything like that, so.
Yeah.
Less of an instruction than anything else.
Of course, in my answer is always, what does the Bible say? And in my answer, I try not to say I think or I believe or it's my opinion, because it doesn't matter what I think or what I believe. It doesn't. It doesn't matter what my opinion is. The only thing that's really important is what you think and what you believe and what your interpretation and how you understand the Bible. That's what's critical. It doesn't matter what I think or what anybody else thinks, you know. So what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? The Bible says, woo. Well, when you're giving an answer to somebody that's asking you a question, you could get off into some murky, deep water that way, you know. The best thing to do is you say, what's the Bible say? Go back to the Word. The Bible is inspired, inerrant, infallible, truth from cover to cover. It's never been proven wrong. People have tried it, and they've ended up converting themselves. I saw a movie here about a week ago to that effect. And so that's the place to go for the answer to whatever question it is. And the question is why do we need to have an answer to a question? 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who will judge the living and the dead, and in view of his appearing in his kingdom, I give you this charge. This is Paul talking to Timothy. Preach the word, be prepared, in season and out of season, which means all the time. Now, the Bible's filled with seasons and moon periods and days and weeks. It starts off right from the beginning. In the evening and the morning was the first day. And so when it says in season and out of season, it means all the time. You got to be ready all the time with an answer. Correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. That's the NIV translation of that, if you will. So we're commanded to be ready. So if we wear the name of Christ, we really don't have a choice, right? We're commanded to be ready. We need to have an answer. And there's a lot of hot topic subjects, you know, and we need to be able to lean into that. Find the crack in that discussion and lean into that and offer an answer. You never know who's going to be the recipient of that answer. You just never know. So, but do it with patience. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. 2 Timothy's filled with this stuff. You know, it's a really great book for this very thing. So, it's not going to be easy, right? What do y'all think? Was it easy for the apostles? Was it easy for Jesus? They all suffered. Every single one of them died a gruesome death except for John, and he spent the rest of his life on an island away from everybody. So you're not promised it's going to be easy. As a matter of fact, you're promised it's going to be hard. It's going to be, you're going to get beat up for what you believe. Maddie told this story once before too. I don't know if I told it in a group forum, but I told it to somebody. She came up, we were out there in Las Vegas visiting. We were out there for a Mission Plan Users Conference thing, staying with Ellen. I think we went out there for that reason. Anyway, we were out there, we were staying with Ellen. And Ellen came up to me and she said, Maddie wants to get baptized. She wants to obey the gospel. I said, okay. I think she was 10. And so I said, okay. So I sat down with Maddie and started talking to her. And she's like book, chapter, and verse, boy. She's got this down. And so we were sitting at a swimming place, and I was talking to her sitting by the pool with my legs dangling in the water. We were having this discussion. And I said, when do you want to do it? She says, let's do it today. I said, okay. I said, we can, she said, we'll do it right here in the swimming pool. I said, well, we could do that, but I could think of a better place. Why don't we go to the church and we'll call up y'all's, some folks from y'all's church too that I'm sure they want to see that, see if they can come down. And we'll do it there in the baptismal. We want to do that? And she says, yeah, we'll do it on the way home. I said, okay. And so I took her there and she obeyed the gospel and it was a great thing. And of course everybody was happy, me too, me included. And so we were sitting in church. So this is on a Saturday, because the Sunday morning we went to church, and we're sitting in church, and she's just like me. She likes to take notes. And I don't know if she got it from me or from her mama, but she likes to take notes. She's got the whole sermon right there on her little notepad. And the sermon was on obeying the gospel and living the Christian life. Imagine that. And so after the service was over with, I was kind of sitting there as we were getting up, and I leaned over to Maddie. I said, what's the hardest thing? And that was the question I asked her. What's the hardest thing? And she didn't skip a beat. Living the Christian life. I said, that's right. Obeying the gospel is easy. It's this other part that makes it hard. That's where you're going to get beat up. That's where it's going to be taxing and challenging and everything. Well, now she's a teenager, having to make all those teenage decisions, And I was at the last time we were up there, and she happened to be there. So often than not, she's not there when we're there. And I said, look, yeah, I know every single year, every day, every week that time goes on, you're going to have to make more and more decisions, hard decisions, really hard ones. And I'm sure you're already making decisions right now. There's good decisions and there's bad ones. But you got to make them, and you got to make the good decision. So I love you. No matter what decision you make, I got your back. I always will. And Nana will, and your mama, everybody. But ultimately, it's right on you. It's your decision, And it's those tough questions, you see. You're asking yourselves these questions all the time. What's the right way? What's the right path? What's the thing that I'm supposed to do now? And so it's always the best idea. Go back to the book, right? In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 12 through 17, it talks about it not being easy. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 12 through 17. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. While evildoers and impostors will go from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. But as for you, Paul talking to Timothy, obviously. Continue in what you've learned and have become convinced of, because you know those from whom you learned it, and how from infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures. Talking about Lois and Eunice, his grandmother and his mother, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. All Scripture is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. I'm just repeating what Lori just said. Then you go to chapter 4, verse 5, but you keep your head in all situations. Endure hardship. Do the work of an evangelist. Discharge all the duties of your ministry. So, why is it important for us to give a good answer, a biblical answer, the right answer, if you will. Why is that important? Glory, why is that important? Don't doze off on me, I'm going to get you. Why is it important, though? Why? Why is it important? Is it important to you? Okay. Okay, yeah. Why is it important, Keith?
For several reasons, but to me it's important because you're always teaching others, but you're also trying to get yourself heaven. You can't do what you don't know.
The best way to learn any subject is to teach it. That applies to about every subject you can think of. Get prepared to teach it. You'll learn a lot. Plus, you learn a lot from your prospective students, too. Seems like I've learned more teaching flying than I ever learned flying myself from other people. So.
It's important because it fulfills our ministry. And that's as Keith is fond of saying, that's our Christian duty.
That's right. Somebody else is going to say something. Who's that? Is that Miss Pat?
I was going to say, good answer would be pleasing to God.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. I would submit to you that we are at war. And it's like Jesus said, I came to not bring peace, but a sword. And talk about the breastplate and the helmet and the whole nine, being a soldier for the cross. We're at war. We're at war against evil. We're at war within ourselves, our good and our bad side, warring with each other to make the right decision and come up with the right answer. We're at war with all the evil that surrounds us each and every day. Our children are at war, and it's kind of a harsh way to think about it, but I mean, it's true. If you ignore the fact, then you become a victim of that war. So I made the statement, and I've corrected myself. I've read or heard somewhere that there was 33,000 different denominations. Now, the National Catholic Register corrected me. We got to consider the source here. We want to have the right answer, right? So this is what they said, They said that we shouldn't say there's 33,000 different denominations. Uh-oh, what am I doing? Where'd it go? Why did you do it? Okay, here we go. I had this all up and I'm just messed it up. There we go. This is this guy. I guess he's probably a Catholic priest or something or other. So, not all resources are bad. I mean, there's some good information in a lot of different places. We just have to not compromise what we know to be true when we look at these resources. But I thought this was interesting because I've said that, 33,000 denominations. Well, there isn't 33,000 denominations. Recently, because readers can't seem to stop telling me what to write about, someone sent me a link with a note, here's something for you to refute. Somehow along the way, I've become Mr. Refutation. I can't say how that happened. Anyway, the link was an article written all the way back in 2007 by someone named Dr. Glenn Andrew Peoples, whom I have never heard of. Dr. Peoples disputes the common myth, for myth it is, that there are 33,000 Protestant denominations. So apparently this reader thinks Dr. Peoples needs to be taken to school, and I am just the one to do that, and shown that there really are 33,000 denominations, or whatever the number has escalated to today, possibly 51,314 as of this writing, for there's a formula to calculate these things. I regret to say that is not going to happen here. There are not, repeat with me, there are not 33,000 Protestant denominations. There are not anywhere close to it. It is a myth that has been taken hold by the force of repetition, and it gets cited and recited by reflex, but is based on a source that even Catholics will have to concede relies on too loose a definition of the word denomination. So this is coming out of the World Christian Encyclopedia. That's where this 33,000 number came from. And then when you read down, you find out where they actually got it. Independents, 22,000 denominations. Protestants, 9,000 denominations. Marginals, 1,600 denominations. I don't know what some of these are. Orthodox, 781 denominations. Catholics, 242 denominations. And Anglicans, 168 denominations. So you add all that stuff up, 27% of it is Protestant, and so on and so forth. Well, as you read through that thing, what it is that encyclopedia is calling a denomination an individual group, a religious group, i.e., if you said, the way they're defining this thing, College Avenue Church of Christ, Adams Street Church of Christ, Pinedale Church of Christ are 3 denominations. That's how they're counting this. So it's a bogus number. It's not true. I don't know how many denominations there are, but we know of some: Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, so on and so forth. So we do know of some. I guess the point is, if there's one, that's one too many. Why is that? Why is that a dangerous thing?
Christ prayed that we be one, so he obviously wanted unity, oneness, there's one gospel, one plan of salvation, that's why we have so many different ways.
Well, there's an answer to that. If the history that I've read, it spawns off the Catholic Church. And it goes way, way back to the beginning. They thought there was all these individual congregations. Like the Bible tells us, you have your own congregation with your own elders and your own deacons. They're self-sufficient, all under Christ as the head. But they had all these congregations. Somebody came up with the great idea that, well, we need to have a head office. We put somebody in charge. They'll call him the Pope. And we'll make this head office, you see. We'll put it in Italy, So they came up with that. And all these other, from what I've seen, all these other denominations are spawned off of that. Okay, there you go. So they felt like there needed to be a head. Of course, just one church. The head's Jesus. Pretty simple, really. What's the Bible say? What does the Bible say? Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 through 18. Matthew 16, verses 13 through 18. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter, good old Simon Peter. Simon Peter jumps up and says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." So there's a lot of debate, discussion about the rock. Well, if you read that for what it says, the rock is his confession. It's not Peter's not the rock, it's confession is the rock. But Christ says, my church. Just one church. Go to Ephesians chapter 4, verses 4 through 6. "There's one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, and through all, and in all." One church. One church. And so what's the danger? So if you've got all these other religious organizations that are teaching all this variety of doctrine, the danger is that your answer to the question, it could very well be corrupted by that. That's the danger. We need to know in our minds and in our hearts, like the back of our hand, what the answer is. We need to know it. We don't need to shy away from it. We don't need to be timid about it. We need to lean into it and hit it, face it head on, and get every opportunity that we can to carry the cross, to say the truth. And sometimes you get beat up. You know, well, JM, I disagree with you. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm just saying what the Bible says. Well, what about musical instruments in the church and what it says in Psalms? That's a tough question, right? And one that continues to come up, even in the Lord's church. I don't know how many of y'all heard this story. I was out in Wyoming. I was up there supporting the National Guard unit for 4 weeks. So I went to church. Well, it's way out. I mean, you know, you drive on an interstate 85 miles an hour for 2 hours to get out where that National Guard facility was. There was, come to find out after this Sunday morning service I went to, there was 3 churches. There was a church, I'm talking about the Lord's church, in Nebraska, an hour and a half away. There was an a cappella church about an hour away, and then a non-a cappella church, which I had the misfortune of going to. Anyway, so that was the setup. I used to go out on Saturday and I kind of search around and I'm looking for churches to go to. And I found this church, you know, the Church of Christ on the building, the whole nine. And I usually will look in a window on Saturday and I'll see if I can, you know, if I can look into the auditorium and see what they got. Because if they don't have a website and I can't get a hold of anybody on the phone, that's the only thing I can do. Well, this is one of those situations where they didn't have a website. I couldn't get anybody on the phone. The church was a converted car dealership. So I had to make a decision Sunday morning. Am I going to go to this church or am I going to drive to Nebraska? And I didn't know about this a cappella church. I didn't know about that till the next day anyway. So I said, I'm going to go. So I showed up Sunday morning for Sunday school, and there's a nice gentleman there, an older gentleman that met me at the door, real nice guy. I guess probably one of the elders. He chatted me up, you know, and he kind of escorted me back where the Sunday school was. So we went back there, had a great Sunday school lesson, nice Bible-based Sunday school lesson. I loved it, you know. So I'm going, this is working out. So we got finished with that, and he's walking me back out to the auditorium. He said, now, this may be something that you're not used to. You're from Alabama, right? And I'm thinking snakes, speaking in tongues. I don't know what's going on here, you know. So I'm going, okay. By this time, it's too late to go anywhere else now. I'm stuck. And so he's going, I would just, if Bear, just try not to be too disappointed. Okay. So we went down there, got there, and I turned the corner, and the first thing I saw was the drum set. Then I saw the bass over there and the guitar. Everything's leaned up against the wall. I'm going, okay. Well, we had for all intents and purposes, it was a biblical service except for the entertainment. I mean, the preacher's son was playing the bass, and his wife was on the guitar, and we had, anyway. I was very uncomfortable. And so, the old guy was sitting right beside me, you know. And, but the sermon was awesome. It's a biblical sermon. We took the Lord's Supper. I mean, everything was like I would encounter here, except for that. Anyway, as luck would have it, I got invited to lunch. So I'm sitting there at the lunch table with all these guys. Got the old elder guy, got the preacher's son, his wife, everybody's there, you know. And so we ordered the food, and the preacher's son looks right dead at me. So, JM, what did you think about that service? I went, I was a little uncomfortable. No, I'll check that. I was real uncomfortable. Yeah, we kind of figured you're from Alabama, right? I'm going, I don't know what's magic about Alabama, but yes, I'm from Alabama. Well, what made you the most uncomfortable? I said, well, look here. Here, I'll make this challenge to you. And I'm making this challenge to y'all as well, you know. Because you never know really what's in people's minds. Even people that I've gone to church with now for how many years? 30 years? You never know. Make this challenge. Find one place in the New Testament, just one place, where it talks about worshiping God with a musical instrument. Just one. I tell you what, find me one instance in the New Testament where it talks about praising God with an instrument. Just one time. And I made that challenge, I don't know how many times over the years, and I've never had anybody come back to me with something. And I said, I can't get past that. And I'm talking to all these people at this table. I can't get past that. It doesn't say it's authorized. And there's such a glaring difference between the old and the new. Y'all are awful quiet. I'm preaching up here. What do you think so far? Give me a comment. Is it a glaring difference between the old and the new? What do you think, Keith?
There has to be for different people and different purposes.
Whole different time. Different compensation, if you will. That's
One is for presentation of the Messiah.
absolutely. That's right. Well, I did a little bit of.
It's in years, either way, when it comes to the biblical part of it. And like for me, 'cause I've always been very rigid. And I've learned through the listening to Keith, and especially Littleton with the love thing all the time. Because I'm more of a tough love type person. But like when me trying to talk to people, I've already had it, it take 4 days, and somebody was already saying to me, I call the church private church, that all denominations are the same. Most of it out there, you know, all denominations are the same.
Probably may be, I don't know.
Yeah, 4 days. But the thing is, it's like when we go to each other, someone will do it. Romans 12:10 says to go and serve to people in a certain manner these days. Wasn't brought up like that, but we tell it like it is.
Well, 36 years of service in the Department of Defense, I'm not brought up that way either. Sure.
One another, brother, love and honor, preferring one another. So when we discuss things or anything, I'm just put your feelings first. You know, think about, you know, where your heart is, and you know, you got to get into the word, it's got to talk. Every little syllable, every little character, it's got to be done in a nice kind of way. You got to put that other person first.
It's a challenge. But yeah, I mean, what it says, do it in love, in patience, enduring. I'm not either.
When you're doing something in love, sometimes you have to do things that the person doesn't want. If your child is sick, my brother's daughter just took her son to Birmingham from Montgomery to the emergency room because the doctor here couldn't say anything. I'm sure if you asked this young man, you want to go to Birmingham to a doctor you've never seen, into a hospital you've never been to, he probably would have said no. So you can't change the truth of the situation, but with my mom over the last few days, we'd have to make some tough decisions. We'd say, Mama, we love you, and you gotta trust us that we're trying to do the very best thing for you. She didn't want to go to the rehab center when she got where she had been in the hospital was ready to discharge her, but she had a heart attack during the time she was in the hospital. Then after she was in the rehab center, came back home, she had several strokes after that. Now,
Sounds familiar.
loving Mama, there was never a time since Thanksgiving Day that she was not loved or held or cared about, and then as we brought her home, there was not a moment that there was not, usually all 4 of us children, if not just 1 or 2, somebody right beside her.
It's such a blessing too. You know, there's so many people in those nursing homes that Their families dumped them in there, and they don't ever come see them. It just used to break my heart when I go see my mother in Philadelphia, you know, because these people are just starving for just to be talked to, just to have a kind word.
One of the nurses was semi-chastising us. Didn't mean to chastise us, but wanted us to know that we'd spoiled our mother. Said, "Y'all have really
I don't
spoiled
think you
her.
can
She
do
is
that."
the queen." We said, "Well, she is, isn't she?"
She's spoiled.
Well, it can also be the perception of love, because like my circumstance, you don't have Robin, was so angry at me, she was very angry at me for because of Adrian. And so she doesn't have that love, and plus some of the things that I did in my past that got into the way. And so I didn't know how to show her, but I would teach her the kind of love that I've learned now that is the kind of love that Jesus loves us when we sin like we do.
I think there's a vast you know, when you ask somebody, how do you define love? How do you define love? How you define it? Can you define it for me, Stephanie? How you define it? That's the question that I get.
That's fine.
Okay. So what does that make God? Why is he love? How do you define it? People describe love frequently. Love is kind, love is patient. There's a whole chapter about love, right? Is that defining it or describing it? I would submit that's describing it. Love is kind, love is patient. That's describing it. How do you define it?
Love is kind of like hope or faith. It's something that you can't put your hands on, that you can't touch it. You feel it.
Let me submit this. God so loved the world that he gave his son. Jesus so loved the world that he gave his life. What is the same between those two? One word. Sacrifice. If you're not willing to sacrifice for someone, do you really love them? It's not about warm feelings and butterflies. That's got nothing to do with it. That's just describing a feeling that you have. But if you're willing to sacrifice for somebody, now you love them the way God loved the church, the way Jesus loved the church, the way the apostles loved the church. They gave their lives for it. They sacrificed. And so I've asked that question I don't know how many times, and I get the same answer. Well, something you feel. That's a description. That's not a definition. The Bible's filled in one whole chapter. Love is, fill in the blank. It's just describing it. What isn't as black and white as clear is the fact that love is sacrifice. I mean, look at a parent's love for their children. What do they do day in and day out? 24/7, 365. They sacrifice. They sacrifice their time, sacrifice their money, sacrifice their energy, sacrifice their sleep, just on and on and on and on and on. What do husbands and wives do for each other if they love each other? They sacrifice. So, my wife's not the same as she used to be. Duh! You get older, you get uglier, you get more wrinkled. No, she's not going to be the same. You're not the same either. Well, it needs to be a 50-50 relationship. Nonsense. More often than not, it's 0-100. The idea is to hopefully get it to where everybody gets to be 100 every once in a while, but you can't guarantee it. But what makes you love her, or what makes her love you? It's sacrifice. You're willing to sacrifice. And that's true love, it's sacrifice. I think, I ain't gonna say that, it's biblical.
That's what I'm telling Robin now. I'm talking to her, you know, let me show you, because I'm learning how to, more, show you.
If you can sacrifice, and you can, people say, never pass up a really good opportunity to be quiet. Be a better listener than a talker. You'll be amazed what you learn about people and what you learn about yourself, for that matter. Now we're getting close to time. I'm going to go over one question, this musical instrument thing. And I'm just going to throw this out there for you guys. What does the Bible say? That's the most important thing. I mean, it's key. Harp, mentioned 50 times in the Bible. Now, this is the NIV translation, so it may give or take a little bit there. Harp is mentioned 50 times in the Old Testament. It's mentioned 4 in the New Testament. Lyre, as in L-Y-R-E, the instrument, is mentioned 54 times in the Old Testament. New Testament, 0. Cymbal, mentioned 31 times in the Old Testament, once in the New Testament. Trumpet. We really like the trumpet, and I'm a trumpet player. Don't get me wrong, I love playing the trumpet. 160 times in the Old Testament, 15 in the New Testament. Timbrels, which I don't know what that is. I think it's something like a cymbal, I guess. 16 times in the Old Testament, 0 in the New Testament. Pipes, 7 times Old Testament, once in the New Testament. Musical instruments, 6 times in the Old Testament, 0 New Testament. I mean, you can't ignore that comparison. You can't ignore the fact that musical instruments kind of went whoosh. They pushed that aside. Why? Well, you look at 1 and 2 Corinthians, the trouble they were having there in the Corinthian church. It was chaos. Leadership's roles were reversed. There was tongue speak and all this other stuff. It was chaos in that church. That's why Paul wrote them 2 letters to try to get them squared away, get them back on track. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1. Here's some examples in the Bible talking about musical instruments. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Not really mentioned in a great light, musical instrument. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 1 through 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, 1 through 15. Follow the way of love and eagerly desire gifts of the Spirit, especially prophecy. For if anyone who speaks in a tongue does not speak to people but to God, indeed, no one understands them. They utter mysteries by the Spirit. Now we know tongue speak is just languages. We know that from the Bible, right? We're just talking about different languages. But the one who prophesies speaks to people for their strengthening, encouraging, and comfort. Kind of shedding a bad light, kind of a negative light on tongue speak. Anyone who speaks in a tongue edifies themselves, but the one who prophesies edifies the church. I would like every one of you to speak in tongues, but I would rather have you prophesy. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues, unless someone interprets, so that the church may be edified. Now, brothers and sisters, if I come to you and speak in tongues, what good will it be to you unless I bring you some revelation or knowledge or prophecy or word of instruction? Even in the case of lifeless things that make sounds, such as the pipe or harp, how will anyone know what tune is being played unless there is a distinction in the notes? Again, if the trumpet does not sound a clear call, who will get ready for battle? Which it gets used a lot in the Bible for that very thing, is to signify events. The United States Cavalry brought that over from the Bible, and its trumpet signals to different things. So it is with you. Unless you speak intelligible words with your tongue, how will anyone know what you are saying? You'll just be speaking into the air. Undoubtedly, there are all sorts of languages in the world, yet none of them is without meaning. So that it's kind of defining tongues as languages. If then I do not grasp the meaning of what someone is saying, I am a foreigner to the speaker, and the speaker is a foreigner to me. So it is with you. Since you are eager for gifts of the Spirit, try to excel in those that build up the church. For this reason, the one who speaks in a tongue should pray that they may interpret what they say. For if I pray in a tongue, my spirit prays, but my mind is unfruitful. So what shall I do? I will pray with my spirit, but I also pray with my understanding. I will sing with my spirit, but I will also sing with my understanding. Singing in the Old Testament is mentioned throughout the whole Testament. Daniel, we're getting down to the wire here. Daniel chapter 3, verses 5 through 10 and verse 15 speaks about singing. There is very little or no place in the Old Testament where worship has an instrument in it. But there's many, many references to singing, as it does in the New Testament. Sing and make melody in your hearts to the Lord. That's our proof text for singing in the worship service. So, there are 20 verses in the Bible that mention singing. 2 in the New Testament is specific to worship. And I'm going to end it with this. Acts 16:25, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. And then Colossians 3:12 is the one that we always go to. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if anyone has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. The peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you are called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. I mean, doesn't that describe the beautiful church service? You know, when everybody is together in mind and spirit singing to God? I think it does. I believe it does. That's it. I talked way too much, y'all. Too many notes. So, thank you for your attention and participation, and y'all have a great week.
If you'd like to go ahead and come on in and get a seat and grab a hymnal and turn to page 400. Hymn number 400. There's a light shining. There's a light along the pathway, it's guiding me home, leading to that eternal day. And it beckons me on when the pathway seems dark. There's a light that is shining for me. There's a light guiding me through the darkness of midnight. Till the morning I see. There's a light guiding me. That'll be our song of invitation, hymn number 916.
If God's word is true, and I contend that it is, the biggest problem that mankind faces is sin. Thankfully, we have forgiveness of sin offered by God thanks to the sacrifice of his Son. Tonight, if you are in need of that forgiveness, to experience that forgiveness that is offered by God, please don't leave here in need. If you have a need that we can assist you with, please come now as we stand and as we sing. When the be
like to welcome everyone out tonight. The crowd's a little thin, but it's that time of year again. And talking about that, let's remember all the folks that's getting ready to travel out to see family and all the family coming in, and let's remember to keep them all in our prayers for some wonderful time together. If you didn't get a list, make sure to pick one up on your way out. I won't go over it verbatim, but we'll look at a few things together. Let's remember to keep Brother Leon Reynolds' family in our prayers as we still regretfully mourn his passing. And if there's anything you guys need, let us know. Steve Sharp, still over there in rehab. Check on old Steve. Miss Elaine, Brother Keith's mother, her passing was Tuesday morning. Visitation is tomorrow evening from 6 to 8, and the funeral will be Friday morning from 10 to 11, and the services, at 11, and the services are at Leak Memorial Chapel in Montgomery. I don't think we have a bus available for the trip Friday, but if you contact me, we'll see about linking some folks together, carpool, if you need a ride or something. I know Paul and I are going up tomorrow evening. If anybody needs a ride that would like to go, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to put this one to that one, and we'll make it happen. Miss Janice Godwin's going to have ankle replacement January the 3rd in Huntsville. And Miss Joan had her surgery on her neck Monday, and everything went well, and she's doing well. So let's remember to keep her in our prayers that she continues to heal on the course that she's on. Susan Gilmore, and many of us remember Susan. She worked with us for a long time and had just recently gotten over a bout with cancer. She has had some more tests, and she's having some cancer to show up in the lymph nodes. So let's remember Susan. She's been down this road before, and she's very resilient. Let's lift her up in prayer. Mason Miller, a friend of the Alexander family, is waiting and needs a heart transplant. They've got a lot of overwhelming decisions to make, and he has some health issues as he awaits a new heart. So let's remember that family. Wanted to talk to y'all about, we was going about Mr. Pat and Miss Ann and their mishap they had where they both ended up on the ground. And I told y'all Sunday that Mr. Pat said he didn't know exactly what happened. Just he blinked and they was both on the ground and both hurting. And we all, many of us anyway, encouraged him to go to the doctor. And they finally went to the doctor, and as you can see, Miss Ann had a broken collarbone. And we also talked about others that I know have fallen. Go to the doctor. That's what we was talking about. So continue to check on them, but they are improving. I'm sure they got a little something for the pain that's probably helping with that. And just remember all those that we have on here. Miss Joanne Knight, that's Linda Noggle's sister, and she had fallen and had a broken leg. Keep her in your prayers. Wanted to update you guys also, my friend Malcolm Clark, he is still in the unit in Flowers. He's not doing very well at all, guys. I ask that you continue to remember Malcolm Clark in your prayers. He had that bypass surgery, and he's had a lot of complications, and they just can't get him quite right. So continue to remember Malcolm in your prayers. John Rex, my other friend, is doing much better, and I thank you guys for the prayers for both of those fellows. Check on all of the ones that are on our continuing prayer list. Check on the folks that we have in the nursing home. Keith?
Today, and his parents have been on our continuing prayer list for a long time. It's come time for the nursing home, and his mother's having an extremely difficult time, and he asked to replace his
transitions are really, really hard on not just the one that's experiencing the actual transition, but the whole family. Let's remember Larry and his family in our prayers. And if you have an opportunity, maybe give him a call and give for some encouragement. I had some really good news this evening from Sister Stephanie. She's had another scan done and cancer-free. That's answered prayers, guys. We rejoice with the good news from that. Let's see. We have a lot of things going on the announcements. I'll just let you guys kind of read those yourself and be abreast of everything that is upcoming. As we moving around traveling and everything going on, it's easy to miss something. So let's don't miss each other, though. Let's make sure to check on all our elderly folks and make sure that they don't have anything around the house needs doing or anything we can help them with. The area-wide Devo's coming up, Hamilton Crossroads, the 13th of January, and a lot of other things. The Grinch Bowl, Exposure Youth Camp, that's a big one that'll be upon us right here real quick. Does anybody have anything that we needed to bring before the church? Anything? If not, I think Mark's got another verse of a song probably, and Addison is going to have our closing prayer. Guys, see y'all Sunday. Y'all be safe.
If you'd like, let us stand and sing hymn number 885 as our closing song. Hymn number 885. We'll sing the first and last verse, and if you would, just remain standing, and we'll be dismissed in prayer. We read the places go heaven is made good and free. These truths God's He has given. How beautiful heaven must be. How beautiful heaven must be. Sweet home, happy and free. Fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be. Your waters of life there are flowing, and all who drink may be free. Red jewels the splendor are glowing. How beautiful heaven must be. How beautiful heaven must be. Sweet home.
Dear Lord, thank you for letting us come here to worship you, Lord. And we thank you for the food, water, shelter that you provided for us, Lord. And we ask you to be the ones on the prayer and card list, Lord, and also be the ones that we're not aware of, Lord. But we thank you most of all for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross for our sins, Lord. And it's in his name I pray. Amen.